members, 40 families that have joined the San Mateo County Historical Association tonight, because that many of you were not members previously, that have purchased 2 or more tickets and now are members, so welcome. Just briefly to introduce who we are. San Mateo County Historical Association is a private nonprofit organization that runs this old courthouse building as the San Mateo County History Museum. We also operate 2 historic sites, the Woodside Store in Woodside and the Sanchez Adobe in Pacifica. Isn't this courtroom 8 beautiful? Yeah. Thank you. Part of our effort after we moved into the building in 1998 was to restore this building and this room, and we're very pleased with the outcome. Staff has asked me to explain to our new members that we have recorded your membership, but you will not be receiving your package for about a month. I'd like to thank this evening's sponsors, Enbridge Homes, and John Shore of Golden Gate Sotheby's. And he's here, John. So, John, do you want to raise your hands? Well, maybe he left. I don't see him now. Okay, he was here. I'm going to now introduce our Master of Ceremonies, John Horgan. Since 1989, he is the man who has organized the Peninsula Sports Hall of Fame program, and he's been writing about San Mateo County and the Peninsula for over 60 years. He began his journalism career at the long-gone Burlingame Advance-Star, a newspaper I really enjoyed, and spent 43 years at the San Mateo Times and its successor, the San Mateo County Times. He was the sports editor of the former publication. He has been a freelance writer since late 2008. His work has appeared in numerous publications, including the San Jose Mercury News, the NBA Magazine, the NFL Magazine, the San Mateo Daily Journal, and the San Francisco Examiner. He and his wife of 54 years, Marilyn Horgan, have lived in Burlingame since 1968. This is a special night for us with John because tonight we have something special to announce. We have hot off the presses, just a limited number of copies right now. But we have John's new book, Cradle of Champions, The Selected History of San Mateo County Sports. The book features dozens of compelling stories, photos, and statistics involving a wide range of high-achieving homegrown stars such as Tom Brady, Tom Martinez, Wendy Brown, Bill Walsh, John Neighbor, Pat Daniels, Dick Vermeil, Barry Bonds, Lynn Swan, and a host of other luminaries. It also lists all the Sports Hall of Fame inductees from the beginning, and it includes all of you tonight. You're in there as well. After the ceremony, we're going to have an unveiling of the plaques right outside the door here. Then John has consented to come back into courtroom A to sign books for those interested in purchasing them tonight. We were selling them for $21.96, including tax, per copy. But if you're members, and nearly all of you are now, right? It's $19.77. All proceeds will benefit the work. Later, or earlier. All the proceeds will benefit the work of the Museum and Hall of Fame, and I will now ask John to come to the podium.
I'm not sure I need the microphone, but do I need to use it or not? Yes, okay, then I'll use it. My wife says I probably don't need to use it. You're right. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going on and on about this, but I've had an appreciation for history for a long time. When I was 9 years old, I started keeping a diary of our little neighborhood in San Mateo. It's located right behind McDonald's on El Camino in San Mateo. And when we were kids, the Burrell Estate was this gigantic, wide open playground, but unfortunately it was owned by Judge Cotton, who's back here on the wall. And he had security guards who were assigned to kick us out. But one night, or one day rather, my neighbor friend Jimmy and I decided to build a tree fort in the Burrell Estate. And my diary, here's the diary entry. This is 1951. I'm really old. By the way, when I come in this courthouse, when I come in this room, I immediately go, not guilty. I didn't do it. Anyway, so here's my late mother Rose kept the diary. She was also a history buff. And this was the Wednesday entry, the week we built the fort. Wednesday. Jimmy and I built a tree fort in the Burrell Estate. We told the girls to keep out. Thursday, the girls wrecked our tree fort last night. They tore it down. We hate them. I might also add that in the history of San Mateo County high school sports, the girls have more state championships by far than the boys. Hello, Without a sense and appreciation of history, I wrote this out. The achievements of today's athletes, coaches, teams, and others involved in competitive athletics have no perspective, no yardstick, no foundation, little or nothing to gauge their championships, records, and outstanding accomplishments. Not to mention wins and losses and failures. Because sometimes we actually learn more from losing. Because we have to survive and come back and try again. That's sort of like life. So anyway, thank you all for coming. We started this in 1989 at the old San Mateo Times. I have the program from that original event. My wife has it right over there. You're more than welcome to check it out later. And this is the 31st or 32nd, I can't remember. We had two periods where we didn't have it. Obviously the pandemic, didn't have it then. And then we lost our sponsors for 2 years. Fortunately, in the end, Mitch and Carmen Blair and others brought it back. I do want to thank Carmen Blair in particular tonight. She's back there. She does about, 12 or 13 jobs here. Does them well. By the way, we wouldn't have a book if it wasn't for Carmen Blair. She shepherded the darn thing for 2.5 years through a pandemic, torrential rains, floods. My God, one afternoon, we were editing the thing for about the 5th time in one of the rooms, one of those western rooms over there that has these gigantic windows. And a mini tornado came down through Redwood City, and I thought it was going to blow right through. Carmen just sat there and she was looking at some copy, and she goes, I think we need a colon there. Meanwhile, and all hell's breaking loose. It didn't bother Carmen at all. Okay, let's get this party started with David Bakhtiari. Most of you know who he is. It's no secret who he is, because he's on television more than most. Plays in the NFL for the Packers. And his job, if you want to really boil it down to, he's he's a security guard. His job is not to allow his new quarterback, sorry about that, his new quarterback to get hammered. And the thing about his job, if you really think about it, is you only notice him when he fails. When somehow somebody gets by this rather impressive specimen and gets to the quarterback and hammers the poor guy. Then, of course, there's a replay. Then there's another replay. And number 69, right? Number 69, there he is. He failed. Well, I got news. He doesn't fail very often. That's why he's an all-pro. He went to Sarah High School, and he was the first big-time talent emerging from that school under the tutelage of their new coach at that time, Patrick Walsh. So he is in the vanguard. David set the tone for interior linemen for what you see today. In August and September, the Sarah offensive line will probably average about 290, 280, 290. One of the guys is 6'7", 300. Another is 6'5", 290. They have a freshman coming in who's 6'2", 290. And this kid, this is how things have changed. Sometimes I can't believe what's happening. This kid posted an item on Twitter a month ago. He announced his commitment to San Jose State. He's in the 8th grade. He's a big 8th grader. And supposedly he's got footwork almost as good as David, maybe not. But the ball game has changed. Social media has changed it. And the other thing that's changed it is name, image, and likeness, which means a teenager can sell him or herself to a sponsor who will pay them for his image, his name, or even his likeness. A senior at Menlo Atherton this past season, signed a contract while he was playing for MA. A company paid him based on his future earnings within 5 years. They wanted to get in on this young man early, 17 years old. He was being paid to play at Menlo Atherton. Perfectly legal. Perfectly legal. State of California says, not a problem. No problem. Really interesting. Anyway, David. He went to Colorado. And the thing about David is he just kept getting bigger and better. Bigger and better. And by the time he was a junior, it was time to make some money and play for pay. And as Patrick Walsh's first professional football player, David has set the tone for what's going on now at the top high school program in Northern California. David Bakhtiari.
Well, first off, something that you said, I think for me, I'm just kind of an expensive speed bump. I like to kind of call my position. Just kind of want to slow people down. Stopping was kind of tough, especially in this league. But no, I'm honored to be here. This is really cool. Growing up, just a normal kid, didn't really expect to literally be standing here in front of you today. And I'm honored. So before I get into a couple of fun things, I just want to thank my wife, Frankie. I'm honored to be here for you, represent our family. My daughter Felix. Very special moment for me. My family over here. My parents, Debbie and Carl, my brothers, Andrew and Eric, as well as my sister, who wasn't able to make it, and then friends who came all the way across, family, cousins, aunts, uncles. My coach, Patrick Walsh, actually being here today, so kind of cool. We got a couple shout outs for him, so congratulations on that. Yeah, this is amazing. I'd like to say, when I got to Sarah High School, never played football before because my mom wouldn't let me put pads on. She did not want us to hit at all. I would say that hitting people, for me, was very foreign, and I was not very good at it. So the best story I like to always bring up with Coach Walsh was going into my junior year, finally, the thought of playing on varsity very excited me. That was pretty cool, kind of get that, to be in that creed, and for us to sit down here, he asked me, what are my intentions on being on varsity? And I told him flat out, as some of my buddies back here know, like, I wasn't going to be starting at all. So I said, work on the scout team, help out in special teams, and contribute any way I can. And he stopped me right there and he said, for as long as I'm going to be the head football coach of Sarah High School, you will never step foot on my field. I remember I'm like, okay. Well, this kind of interview, getting to know me, is pretty much over. Kind of so I stood up, shook his hand, and went back to it. Until that day, I think that kind of set a little fire underneath me to, one, prove him wrong, two, be something. And now I sit here and stand before him. Feels pretty good. The best part about it is he pushed me and he challenged me. And I think just because I really wouldn't even say he didn't believe in me, it was more he almost believed the most in me. And that's why he was able to push me and challenge me to answer that bell. So I want to say thank you to Patrick Walsh. I'm glad I'm able to stand here today for that. And one other thing, for just my family side, I want to thank my brothers. I backed up my middle brother Andrew in high school. I was his backup as an offensive lineman because I didn't play my senior year in high school. I was pretty bad. I don't know if anyone really knew or followed me. When I mean bad, I mean like really bad. I was like 5'10", 165 pounds soaking wet as a freshman in high school, and I left about 6'2", 6'3", 240. Where Coach Walsh put on all my film that I was 6'5", 265. I was telling my kid that I'm not that big, it doesn't matter, that's just what they want to hear. So, and he's kind of right, I kind of grew into that, so I ended up getting that big, but I wanted to thank my brothers, like backing up my brother, having Andrew really pushing me. He was the stud. When you think high school football, he dominated. My older brother Eric, he kind of the same stories as me. We both sucked for literally 3 years, and then his senior year he sprouted up and became something, and finally went on to college. And the biggest thing about it for me that I would love to share with you guys, so you guys can hear a little bit more story, was my mom loved all of us no matter what. Not saying my dad did, but she loved all of us equally, and he felt that. My dad's attention always was who was the best. And his attention was, there's a reason why he's sitting next to my oldest brother right here. So when he was the first person to play college football, my brother actually went to the NFL. There was big shoes to fill for us younger brothers. And for me, I know deep down I never wanted to admit it, but part of me was like, I want to get that attention. And before, it used to be kind of negative attention. I used to, like my daughter kind of does, make some sounds, cry, whine, have people look at me. I need something, I have a dirty habit, I need the ball. But back being a teenager, that's not. But that moment for me to push myself and to finally see him start recognizing what I was doing really meant a lot. And again, I wouldn't have it any other way, because it's, whether he was intentional or not, it was a challenge, and I loved raising up to the challenges. I think that's something that's really special that all of us, I would love for anyone to take from this is, no challenge is too big. Shoot for the stars, even if you miss, you're still in space. So for me on that, I love you, Dad, for that. I'm glad you have to sit here and literally stare at me taking this award. My older brother, Eric, suck it at fucking no, seriously, this is amazing. I appreciate everyone. Congratulations, all the inductees. Thank you very much.
See, he has a career now after football, after dinner speaker. Perfect. The next inductee is Nicole Quigley-Borg. And she's an example of how to follow greatness with even more greatness. Because Nicole followed arguably one of the outstanding community college coaches in history in California, Tom Martinez. He coached 3 sports: softball, women's basketball, and football. He was an innovator, he was a teacher, he drove people pretty hard, his players will tell you that, and Nicole was one of his players. She came to Tom from Cappuccino High School in San Bruno, where she was an outstanding pitcher. She came to CSM, and she was a great pitcher there. She then matriculated to Tennessee. She was terrific there. And she came back, and she decided to pursue softball as a coach at CSM. So she volunteered and helped Tom Martinez for several years, and he was in declining health, sadly. And lo and behold, within a couple of years, Nicole took over the program, and she has brought the College of San Mateo to the top rung of junior college softball in the nation. Not 2023, but in 2022, CSM, under Nicole, won the California State Championship for the first time. That made them, by any measure, #1 in the nation. And that's because California has by far the largest 2-year system outside of China. It's gigantic, more than 1 million students. It's huge. And I would say that you can make an argument, I'm sure this is arguable, but I'm prone to hyperbole. I have to control it sometimes. My wife will vouch for that. You could argue that last year, for sure, she was the #1 coach in the country. I really believe that. So Nicole's going to talk to us a little bit about women's sports, how she got here, and what it all means. Because sports, no matter how you look at it, is a test, and it's a test in public. Your wins and losses are in public. It's not like chemistry. It's not like calculus, where it's a private failure or a private C-. In my case, trigonometry, it was a D+, and bring in your parents. Nicole, come on up and talk to us, please.
Well, I don't know how I followed David. That was pretty funny. Thank you very much. It's such an honor to be here and be amongst such decorated people in the sports world. When I walked around out there, I was like, wow, there's some pretty big names up on this wall. And wow, my name's going to go on this wall too. You know, to be in the sports world takes a lot of sacrifice. If you're an athlete, if you're a coach, if you're a spouse of a coach, a parent of an athlete. You know, my parents took me everywhere I needed to be, whenever I needed to be there, travel softball. I've been a bulldog for more than half of my life. I started at CSM after I graduated from Cappuccino. Played for Tom Martinez. I also played basketball at CSM for Michelle Warner, who's still the current coach at CSM. And Mike Lewis here actually tried to recruit me to throw the javelin too. And I told him, no way, buddy. He tried really hard. But in my time at CSM, I had so many positive influences in my life that really helped me get to where I was going. The road was not easy. I was not the best athlete by any stretch of the imagination. So if you sucked, I probably sucked more. But I worked really, really hard. And I think that's what got me to where I was. I remember going on my recruiting trip to the University of Tennessee, and the coach that recruited me took me straight to Pat Summitt's office. And my jaw hit the floor. I thought, there's no way. Like, there's no way I'm actually standing in front of Pat Summitt right now. She told me, this is where you're gonna come, you're gonna sign on this trip, and I'll be there on your senior day. And I'll sit at your table at every endowment dinner. And I, obviously being a former basketball player, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So I made a phone call to the Auburn coach and said, hey, I'm not coming. I just signed with the University of Tennessee. Unfortunately, in my time at Tennessee, I got hurt. I suffered an elbow injury, so that's kind of how I fell in love with coaching. I figured out a way to be a positive impact on my team without, sulking in the corner because I couldn't play. So coming back, as John said, Tom was very, very ill when I came back to CSM. I was the pitching coach at NDNU. I was going to grad school. I was working with Tom at the time, and then all of a sudden, Tom can't coach anymore. And I remember having a meeting with Gary Dilley, and he said, hey, so you think you can do it? And I said, probably not, but I'll give it a try. And Gary was really a solid foundation for me in those first few years. Even though I wasn't the actual head coach, I was the interim head coach. He kind of just threw me in the deep end and said, go figure it out. And that was probably the best method for me to learn was not holding my hand, just telling me, just go do it. Gary, thank you for believing in me. And, at the ripe age of 26, I got hired full time and was basically told, you'll never do what Tom did, never. And I remember, Mike and I have had so many conversations. Nicole, you guys really helped pave the way and helped me be as successful as I have been as an athlete and as a coach. I love that I can walk down and go say hi to Mike when he's with his throwers, and it doesn't matter what he's doing or where they're at in their practice, he always stops and talks to me. And that's kind of the Bulldog way, right? The standard of excellence that we preach is we really treat our people well, and that's why we have so much success at CSM. So, just super grateful for our whole community there, and the people that actually believed in me when I was really young and didn't know anything about coaching, nothing. And I surely didn't know anything about that tennis class you made me teach either, Gary. He handed me a book and said, here you go. I said, all right. So, again, I just completed my 20th year at CSM. I started coaching at CSM when I was 23. I became the full-time head coach at 26. So my 17th year, I've had the same 2 assistants with me the entire road. There's a solid foundation in our softball program, and Toby and Dale have been with me the entire way. Shoot, Dale was there with Tom, and we really do love working with each other. We have a set philosophy as to what we're trying to accomplish every single year, and that standard of excellence that's the bar that we've set, and we want to maintain that. So I'm extremely fortunate to be surrounded by people that genuinely care about being great and leveling up and taking a challenge and running with it. Because the biggest challenge for me was, you will never be as good as Tom. And I said, you're right. I may not be, but I might be better. And I can say that with true, genuine love for the late Tom Martinez. He was my guy, and when he passed, that was a really tough time. I remember we weren't allowed to name the field after him, and I thought that was just such a shame for a man that gave so much to one institution, coaching 3 sports for so long. So we just put the Tom Martinez Wall of Fame up and ask for forgiveness later. But if you ever pass by our field, you'll see all the championships that were won. But I didn't start it. I just continued the success because he really, truly is. CSM softball, CSM basketball, CSM football. You say Tom Martinez, everybody knows who that is. So the fact that I got to follow and continue that legacy at CSM is such an honor. And I genuinely thank everybody that has helped me along my way. My family that has sacrificed all of the time that I've been away from them. It's such a huge sacrifice to be a coach because it's all consuming. When you want to do it great and you want to be the best, it takes a lot out of you and it takes a lot away from your family. So I'm extremely grateful to Michelle, Dylan, and Alex for just really absorbing all of the tense days and watching film with me on the couch. And my son Dylan probably knows how to chart better than anybody else in this room because he's watched so many games with me. And it's really just an honor to be here with such a great class of inductees. And I appreciate all the attention and the honor, and congratulations to all of you up front.
I know that there are some previous inductees in the audience. I know Todd is here, Fred Bear is here. Would any of the prior inductees please stand up? Todd? Yep. One of the things that always strikes me about the suburbs, San Mateo County. These are old suburbs. We're really lucky here. A lot of this is timing. A lot of it is luck. A lot of it is who our parents are or were. I wouldn't be here if my parents were not. If they didn't move to San Mateo in 1947. I didn't go to school here. It's all chance. I'm telling you right now. It's luck, and we are lucky. We really are. Now, one of the beauties of this place is we have 20 separate cities, and many of them are small towns. They're small towns. Hillsborough, Burlingame, Atherton, Woodside, Menlo Park. The list goes on. Half Moon Bay, Pescadero. We really have it all here. We have city life, we have rural life, we have suburban life. Horace Hinshaw has been an integral part of a small town for well over a half a century. Okay? Pacifica was actually a number of valleys, just valleys, until about 55 or 60 years ago. And they incorporated the whole thing into one town. And one of the people who has helped to unify the town, promote the town, write about the town, love the people and the town, is Horace Hinshaw. Horace doesn't get enough credit, but he's getting it tonight because, gosh darn it, he deserves it. He deserves it because he has helped to make Pacifica a special place. Pacifica has challenges like every town. But Horace has written sports for the Pacifica Tribune for more than half a century. He's promoted the town's Little Hall of Fame. It's terrific. He does a great job. And it's hard to express how important that is in a small town. Without Horace, a lot of the good stuff that happened may never have made it into print. So Horace, come on up and talk to us about Pacifica and about your life.
Thanks, John, and thanks to the committee for this honor. I really appreciate it. And Pacifica is a small town, and it's really never grown in the last 40, 50 years. Back in 1957, when it became an incorporated city, it was 20,000 people. Today, it's only about 38,000. Hasn't grown very much, has it? But there's a lot of activity that happens in Pacifica. In fact, some of you people in this room probably have passed through Pacifica at one time and played sports, and I've probably written about you out there somehow. Just earlier tonight, Pat Lewis and I were talking. Pat started at Oceana High School in 1970 as a track coach. I started writing for the Pacifica Tribune in 1969. So you can tell we've been around a long time, but once again, thanks again for the honor. And kudos to the inductees tonight, David, Nicole, Maddy, and Mike. And my condolences to the Mack family. When I saw Eddie's resume in the paper or wherever the program might have been, I saw that he had worked for the Postal Service for many, many years and retired at a good retirement age. And I often wondered, when I saw that resume, did our paths cross sometimes in the Postal Service? Because I retired from the Postal Service in 2005 after 44 years in the Postal Service. So I had a great life in the Postal Service. So that leads me into the second life of myself. I originally came from Arkansas. I was a sports writer in Arkansas. I grew up in sports as a kid. I wasn't that big, of course. I could play second base for the youth sports, but I never could hit. And so maybe that's where I decided to go into sports writing and also some broadcasting. And so I graduated in Arkansas. I went to write for a Arkansas newspaper a couple of years after I got out of school. One day I got a knock on the door. It says, "Mr. Hinshaw, report down at the draft station. You are now going to be in the U.S. Army." And I thought, oh my God, what's going to happen now? So they called me and they sent me a letter and said, on this date you report down to the station. You're going to be sent to Fort Knox, Kentucky to learn how to drive a tank. Did I look like I could drive a tank? Come on. Yeah, great. Fortunately for me, 2 days before I was supposed to report to Fort Knox, I got another letter. We didn't have emails at that time. Everything came through the mail, which was good for me, right? So that worked out great. And so it worked out. They said, oh, change of orders. You're going to report to San Francisco. And John made reference to chances happening. I've always spent my life on you turn right and you turn left, and something happens one way or the other. I got this letter. I had no idea where San Francisco really was, what it's about. You're going to report to Presidio, San Francisco, which I knew nothing about. You're going to be with the U.S. Army. For some reason, they needed a journalist and a radio announcer in San Francisco. So I get on the plane 2 days later, head out to San Francisco, arrive in San Francisco, 12 o'clock midnight, wearing a khaki short-sleeve shirt. I get off that plane. You could see the chills coming up and down there. It was so cold. So I certainly know what it is to live in San Francisco. You know, I have to really thank my wife and my family for me writing all these years with the Tribune. I met her down the road in 1964, but I'm going to go back a little bit and talk about her and my children, because when I started writing for the Tribune, my children thought that the dinner entree every night was a hot dog. We were going to covering baseball games, little league games, girls' sports, and having hot dogs for dinner. And I thought it was okay. I mean, sometimes they didn't, but it was good. And so we grew up on that rate of eating hot dogs. But I really think Marion is my wife. She's in the audience today. I saw and from Chico, my son-in-law Greg came down with our grandchildren, Kerrigan and Natalie, and they're both out of college now, so they're going to have to do something else, I guess. Now, one of those things. I want to salute John Horgan. 35 years ago, he started this program. Phenomenal. In fact, I look on the list of people on the roster who on that walls out there. There's 10 Pacificans in that place. 10 Pacificans in the Hall of Fame. And I salute him for that. Unfortunately, Pacifica doesn't really get that much knowledge of our athletes in the city. And so I really thank him for putting that notice and letting people know that there are Pacifica athletes out there, because we have got champions that have come out. We have got professional people that have come out. We had a rugby championship, Danny Barrett, who went on to accomplish a U.S. Olympic championship. It's amazing what comes out. He should want you to be in the Hall of Fame. So it's amazing. So what happened is, he has his Hall of Fame. In 1984, Pacifica began a Pacifica Sports Club. We started honoring our local high school athletes for their achievements throughout the course of the season. And we had what we call the Breakfast of Champions. It happened at the News Lodge. News Lodge donated everything for us to come in and honor these athletes. Well, in 1990, I became, going back, I was the advisor for this group because I was writing about everybody, and they said, who do you think should be in the Sports Hall of Fame? And I said, in the Breakfast Champions, I said, Susie and Johnny and everybody else. So in 1990, I became president of the organization. The first thing I did, John, was to introduce a Pacifica Sports Hall of Fame to honor our athletes there. Today, after 32 years, we have over 170 people in our Pacifica Hall of Fame. So I'm really honored for that, and I think that's fantastic. One person that's not here tonight, unfortunately, he died 10 years ago, was Bill Drake, the publisher of the Pacifica Tribune. That's how I got into the newspaper writing. I started working for the Postal Service in 1995, but I really wanted to get back into doing some sports writing or some sports coaching or something like that. And at that time, Skyline College was just really getting off the ground, and I thought, gee, they needed a sports information director. And I said, gee, I'll go over there and check that out. Well, I go in, I introduce myself, and I happened to talk to Sam Goldman. If anybody knows Skyline or journalism, Sam Goldman was the guru of Skyline. And I said, are you hiring anybody for a sports information director? And he said, no, we can't afford it. You're looking at the sports information director. So he was a professor of journalism and a sports information director. But he said, down at Pacifica Tribune, and I had no idea what Pacifica Tribune is. We had just moved to Pacifica and lived in the Fairmont area. I had no idea what the Tribune was. So I made contact with Bill Drake, who was the publisher and editor at that time, and we talked about a job. He was looking for a reporter that does sports and general news. And I said, I really don't care about doing general news that much right now. I can't do full-time, but I can do part-time and work at nights and on the weekends. And he said, well, we can't do that either. And I said, well, why don't we give it a try? So he said, okay, let's do a try. Go out and write some stories and come back. Well, it was 2 weeks. Ended up 54 years. So where does those years go? 54 years. So it's one of those things that that really just came to an end briefly about 2 years ago when the Pacifica Tribune was sold to the Coastside News Group. And at that time I decided I better take a step back and look at my life and say, hey, 54 years is a long time. But I would continue to do a column, but nothing like a 20 to 30 hours anymore. So, but I just want to share with you how my wife and I got involved with all this stuff, because she's a native San Franciscan. I'm always trying to get that 5 minutes because that's what you're waiting to do. But I met her because her brother played for a team called the Arkansas Travelers, which is a minor league team of the Philadelphia Phillies in the early 50s. He graduated from Lincoln High School with Mike, Pat, and Dennis, and got drafted by the Phillies and was sent to Arkansas to play. I was writing sports at that time, and my job was to cover professional sports. And I got to know this fellow named Jack Kerrigan, and he lived in San Francisco, graduated. And so when I got drafted and came out here, he said, let's get together when you come out. So we did. And then one day, 6, 7, 8 months later after I got drafted, he called and said, Arkansas is going to play San Diego in the Pacific Coast League. Why don't you come on down? So I flew down, and over the period of time that I had spent with Jack at his home in San Francisco, I met his parents and had a dinner many times at their house. Well, I walked into the stadium that night, and I saw his wife, and there was this young lady standing there talking, and I got to talking to them, and then she said, who is he? And they said, oh, this is Horace Hinshaw, he's a friend of your brother's. Well, to fast forward 2 years, and then we got married. So that's what it says. We met on the baseball diamond. She had no idea how to do a scorebook, although she'd gone to many games because she went to high school, she went to the pros, but she didn't know how to do a scorebook. So we sat there that night and did a scorebook, and from there, 2 years later, we got married and had our children. But to just finish with what I want to say about what John said about community and the newspaper. Small town newspapers are really dying off now. You're lucky if you have in a city where you have a community newspaper. You can't get the information about somebody having a birth today or somebody getting an award at a school or something like that. It's just hard to come by. It's a dying breed right now for community newspapers, and that's why the Pacific Tribune has really done a good job of trying to cover everything. So I've enjoyed writing sports, I enjoyed covering the athletes, I've had a great time, and I really appreciate John thinking about it.
A quick note, 25 years ago, we had an event with 11 inductees. It was held at a hotel in Burlingame, which had a bar. In fact, it had more than one bar. Okay. One of the inductees, and he was one of the last inductees, I'm not going to mention his name, had been to more than one bar. We asked all of the inductees 25 years ago to just keep your remarks to 7 or 8 minutes. This gentleman talked for 35 minutes. And some of his words were intelligible. It was like listening to Foster Brooks talk about high school sports. That's never happened again. It hasn't come close to that. But I'll tell you what, many of the members of the audience were leaving to go to those 2 bars during his speech. Mike Lewis. The Lewis family in San Francisco is well represented in the San Francisco, it's a prep hall of fame up there. We have several family members in our hall of fame as well. Mike Lewis is one of the he might be the longest tenured coach in the community college district. I'm not positive about that, but he's not full-time to my knowledge, but he's volunteered. He's been there at Skyline and CSM for well over 40 years. And his specialty is something that's not always appreciated. He's a track and field coach who specializes in throwing things, large, heavy objects. It's a thankless sport. Javelin, discus, shot put. It's thankless because the improvements by the athletes often are incremental. a kid, a young person, although Mike's son, is he a freshman at Sarah? Sophomore at Sarah. He apparently is improving his distances by leaps and bounds. So maybe he's an outlier. I don't know. But one of the great aspects of Mike is patience. Patience with young athletes, male and female. Doesn't matter. And he's it's probably not fair to say father figure, because that has a slightly, I don't know, the connotation might be a little negative, but I don't think it's a bad thing to be a father figure to young athletes and be patient with them. Mike comes from a family of high-achieving athletes. I remember one of his brothers, Denny Lewis. All these guys went to, I believe, Lincoln in San Francisco, out of the Sunset District. And Denny Lewis, one night, he was a great basketball player, terrific. He went to Cal, didn't he? Yeah. And he came down to play basketball against Sarah, and I guess it was 1959. And Denny just tore us apart. I mean, he came down like it was, no big deal. There's like 800 people in the stands. It didn't bother him. He just, So we got used to the Lewis family real quick. So Mike, why don't you come up and chat with us about weights? Weights.
Thank you, John. First of all, congratulations. Very nice inductees. Wonderful. John hit a lot of good spots here, and I think some of the main things I'd like to touch before I get over in there is I've been in this coaching or teaching business for close to 50 years. And I started out, originally my bill-paying job was that in the San Francisco Fire Department. And I worked rescue squad there for 22, 24 years. When I was working, there was only 2 rescue squads in San Francisco. And there was a lieutenant or a captain down at Rescue 1 downtown on Flint Street. And he had a son out at St. Ignatius. He was a great big kid, a football player. And he said, Mike, would you do me a favor? Would you go out? He wants to throw the shot put. I'll send somebody up to your place and have them stand by for you. Can you go out there and teach him that ball game? The steel ball game. So I said, sure, I might as well. I haven't done anything in a couple of years. And in the throws, I threw a little bit of Fire Olympics and that stuff, and played those games. And so I went out, and I worked with the kid. He did really well. He ended up winning the state championship. And he went down to USC as a football player. I think he made All-American down there. He ended up being the padre for the fire department in San Francisco. And he did really well. That started it out for me. So then I moved over into St. Ignatius for a couple of years and worked with Terrence Ward. He's a great kid. He's still around down here. Head coach. I moved from there up to San Francisco City College for a couple of years. Worked under a head coach. I'm underlining this head coach stuff so you can hear me. Lou Vasquez, God bless you, Lou. Then I moved out to Skyline under a coach by the name of Bob Lualhati. I stayed there for 10 years. There was a head coach down at College of San Mateo 36, 38 years ago. Wonderful, wonderful young man at that time named Bob Rush. He said, Mike, you want to come down? I have an open spot. You want to come down and take over the throws part of track and field for me? And I said, I don't know, Coach, I said, I make a lot of money up here at Skyline. And he said, really? He says, what can I offer you? And I said, well, I have a van. I've got 3 dogs that I keep with me. I have to be able to bring them down because I want to run them. He said, I'll tell you what I'll do. You bring your van. If you know CSM, you drive down the end of the track, and there was a field down by the baseball, hardball, and he said, you can park it there and bring your dogs. You're the only van that's ever been allowed on the track. And plus, he says, we have sunshine. Getting back to Skyline, being the psychologist that I am, I had always told all my athletes that they were going to be the toughest, hardest, farthest throwers there were around because it was so cold and wet and rainy. And actually, they're pretty close to the point where they were. As it was, I went down to CSM. Had many, many throwers, male and female. Did absolutely wonderful things. It just was working with them, being able to say that they could do it. They didn't have to be super champions, and they could be in a place where there was a lot of love, a lot of laughter. When you're getting down into the business, it was something else. They did fantastically. I had All-Americans, I had state champions, I had Olympians, world people, male and female, shot put, discus, javelin, hammer, and they all started out with, we can do this, and we can do it together. So every day that they came through, you always take time to say, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How are things at home? Interesting. Not a lot to throw them off, but enough to show them that you really care. Now let's get down to work. And they worked hard, and they threw far, and they did well. It's been an unbelievable pleasure just to be working with so many of them, hundreds. I don't even know how to tell you the numbers. Right now, I need to show some thanks to those head coaches, which were Bob Rush, Gary Dilley, Joe Mangan, Dave Schrock, Bobby Luahati, Jim Wyatt, who was my original coach at Lincoln High School. And then, of course, I have my family. My brothers are both here, Dennis and Patrick. Dennis was talked about by John. He's the kid over here with the sandals on. At least his pants are long tonight. I have my wonderful eldest son and his 2 children. They're twins, they go to Arizona. Big Joey, rugby, David. My youngest son is Luke over here. He's the one we talk about down at Sarah. Working hard, not hard enough. I have my lovely, and really supportful wife, Nicole, in the rim. Nicole was an Olympian in Atlanta in 1996. World thrower, national champion NCAA, one of the many females that we had competing out of CSM and out of the area here that came and worked out with us up there. There have been many young people that have come through the system that Believe me, it's hard. I can't even count them. I have one quick story here, well, maybe more than one. One of my athletes is in the back here, and I won't even give you his name. And I had him up at Skyline College. And he was a discus thrower, and a very good one, shot putter. Big, tall, rangy, Irish, long arm, big body. There also was a teacher, a young lady, who taught ballet up in Skyline. She would come down and run around the track, and I, of course, would have conversations with her, and I got her attention. Excuse me, thank you. I got her attention, and I said, would you do me a favor? Would you ask this young man who's in, I got him in your ballet class for rhythm and balance, and would you tell him and the rest of the class, tomorrow you all bring and wear tutus? He brought his tutu. He never knew who told him, who told him about it. He went around that ring, and he was well over 6 feet tall. He went around that ring like a ballet dancer, and he threw far. And he did really well, went on to Maryland. He probably knows who I'm talking about now. But anyway, most important is to say congratulations to all of you. I really appreciate being put into this position and into the Hall of Fame. And with my love and my understanding to all, thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
The next inductee is Maddy Price. 15 years ago, Menlo School had an important basketball game. I think it was a playoff game towards the end of the year. And they were pretty good. John Hay was coaching. In fact, he's still coaching. And John is an excellent coach. And he had some nice players. So we went down to watch the game. And we're watching, and all of a sudden, there's this player on the court that we had never really seen before. This kid was, I don't know, maybe 5'9"-ish, powerfully built, really strong. We could rebound, and she ran the floor like a gazelle. I mean, she was powerful, she was extremely fast, and just determined. She looked, she was 16, and she was a woman. And we're watching her and going, who is that? We had no idea who it was. Well, it turned out to be Maddy Price, a track and field athlete, playing basketball. Well, whoa. It turned out the track and field, she was even better at track and field. And she's a sprinter. She came close to making the U.S. Olympic team, but she runs now for Canada because she has family roots in Canada. She was in the Olympics, she was in the last Summer Olympics. Her relay team finished 4th. They just missed a medal. But she's a stunning athlete. She's also highly intelligent. She went to Duke, became an All-American, set records at Duke, sprints, 100, 200, 400. Having seen her up close and personal, it's no surprise what she's doing. She can't be here. Her mom's here. Her high school coach is here, Mr. Chen. It's no surprise. And again, as you all know, And as Mike will tell you, all these coaches, Cole and all the rest, you can have all the talent, you can have a great body, you can be fast, you can be strong, but if you don't have, as Dave pointed out, you don't have that extra toughness and desire to be great, then it doesn't quite happen. With Maddy Price, trust me, it is happening now in Europe. So Maddy's mom wants to talk to you, and also Mr. Jim. Come on up.
Well, to actually follow Coach Mike Lewis, I actually graduated from San Mateo High School, class of '93. Don Louis was my coach. To actually follow Coach Mike Lewis, this is a huge honor beyond words. So thank you again, Coach, for coaching here. I actually wrote my speech because I digress quite a bit. So in order to keep this like under 5 minutes, I actually wrote down my speech. So good evening, everyone. My name is George Chen. I'm the cross country and track and field coach at Mountain School for over 2 decades. I'm extremely honored and humbled to be standing here in front of so many phenomenal people and sharing a little bit about Maddy Price. By the way, thankfully, unfortunately, here I go digressing again. Unfortunately, basketball and soccer are in the same season. You think that Maddy Price was a great basketball player? Wait until you see her playing soccer. She's an even better soccer player. So anyways, I digress. Maddy Price, the athlete, is very impressive indeed, but Maddy the person is absolutely phenomenal. From 6th grade cross country to the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, Maddy's constant personality has always been the down-to-earth, old soul, behind-the-scenes hardworking, resilient, humble, non-typical, non-trash talking sprinter, a great role model to kids and adults alike, and inspirational to many, which she picked up from her amazing parents. Maddy visits her roots, the San Francisco Peninsula, often, and continues to generously give back to the community, as I'm sure all the inductees here tonight also do. We've gone through many memories and journeys together, many good ones, a few bad ones, definitely many funny ones, and some crazy ones as well. But again, Maddy has been the constant rock with the biggest, squishy, loving heart every time. So again, it's a huge honor to introduce Maddy Price and her family on this very special day. And again, huge congrats to David, Coach Nicole, Horace, Coach Mike, and Eddie as well. Again, thank you. And in order to receive Maddy's honor is her mom, Sarah Price.
Thank you, George. I'm Maddy Price's mom, Sarah. My husband and I, Sean, we moved to the Peninsula close to about 30 years now. We came from Canada, and obviously new here, immigrants. We were welcomed into this incredible, thriving community in the Peninsula, and it became our home. So I have to say this is truly an honor to accept this award on behalf of my daughter and our family. Maddy can't be here tonight because she's still training. She's in Europe, and she's training for the next Olympics in 2024 in Paris. So she sent a message to you all and to thank you all for this honor. So let me read that from them. Thank you to the Peninsula Sports Hall of Fame for this incredible honor. I wish I could be here to accept this award, but I'm currently in the middle of my season, racing and training in hopes to compete for the World Championships this summer and for the 2024 Olympics next summer. I attribute my success in the track world to the Peninsula community, my coach, George Chen, my current coach, Mark Mueller, and to the coaches of all the sports that shape us. To Menlo School, to South School, to my family who were the true catalysts in this 10-plus year journey to the Tokyo Olympics and beyond. To this day, I play sports and I run because it brings me so much joy. It makes me feel powerful beyond measure, and I hope it inspires younger generations to believe in themselves and continue to play. I am so grateful for the support that I have received throughout my career, and I'm excited to continue to push the limits. I do hope you join and follow me. I feel so honored to be recognized amongst these amazing inductees and to be part of the Peninsula community my whole life. Thank you. Sincerely, Maddy Price.
Our last inductee, unfortunately, has passed on recently. And personally, I feel doubly bad about losing Eddie Mack because he had been on our list for induction for at least 7 years. We made a mistake. We waited too long. I'll take personal responsibility. I feel bad about this. But we're going forward with the best of intentions to induct Eddie posthumously. He was a groundbreaker. He was a star athlete at San Mateo High, later at CSM. He played football and ran track and field. He was an African American living in a city and a town and a county that was certainly not overwhelmingly African American. I mean, here's a statistic that Claire Mack, his widow, is going to appreciate. In 1970, this is one of my favorite statistics. 1970, public school enrollment in San Mateo County, public schools, 125,000 children, kindergarten, senior in high school. 125,000. Of those, 115,000 were white. Okay? Today, we have, the last I saw, we had 85,000 kids in San Mateo County, public schools. So we've lost, however you want to phrase it, 40,000 kids. Almost every single one of those seats was held by a white kid. This county is now, the white percentage in the county schools now is about 30%. We have changed dramatically over time. And Eddie's generation has seen it all. Claire Mack is the former mayor of San Mateo. She knows better than anybody. She knows better than me, better than Mitch, better than anybody, how the county has changed. Eddie was a shining light in terms of expanding all of our consciousness, awareness, and appreciation for differences. Eddie made this place better. He was a gentle soul, but he was a gifted athlete. And on top of it, when he went to Cal Poly, way back in the day, this was probably 1950, 1949, 1950, he became the first league champion long jumper ever at Cal Poly. And he set records there that stood for 10 or 11 years. So he, in many ways, he was representing a whole cohort of people in San Mateo County. I mean, I remember San Mateo High back in the day, back in the 50s. And San Mateo High was one of the few high schools in the mid and northern part of the county who had African American student athletes. And I remember at my school, we had 0 African American kids in our senior class. We had none. So when we played San Mateo, it was a big deal. It was a learning experience, and it was important. It was different. It was just different, and it was really educational, and in the end, it was great. I mean, guys like Bob Little, who passed away not that long ago, he became a friend. It's interesting. It's interesting. And Eddie, in some ways, he was ahead of his time. Anyway, Claire Mack, his widow, is going to talk about him and his life. And let's face it, Claire knows him a whole lot better than anybody else.
Good evening, everybody. What a wonderful time, what a wonderful place. You have no idea how wonderful the Peninsula is, and especially San Mateo, since I was the mayor 3 times. I want to say this to David because he is the epitome of a football player. But my husband played football at Cal Poly in San Mateo High School and College of San Mateo, and he was 5 feet 2 inches tall. But the opposing teams were not as big as you are today. We were eating different food back in those days. But this man was fast, and I'm going to share a story that I shared last weekend at Cal Poly. They couldn't catch Eddie. Eddie was that fast. At one of the football games, he told this story, and I'm going to tell it right this time, that the opposing quarterback said, "You get number 20, you get number such and such, and I'm going to get the N-word in the middle." He couldn't catch Eddie. He could not catch him. I caught him. I was fast too. I think many of you will know the name Bud Winter. Bud Winter was a very famous track coach down at San Jose State. And he said to Eddie, "The reason we didn't recruit you is because of your size. We didn't think that you were ever going to be able to get better than you were as a high school student." And he proved them wrong. Absolutely proved them wrong. But Eddie was most proud of 3 things he did in his life. And because time is short, I'm going to go to those 3 things. The first one is Vicky Mack Latayad, who was the owner and founder of Gospel Centric Records, the largest gospel record label in the United States, and I'd like you to meet her. One of the best chefs in the entire Peninsula, Leslie Mack. And their baby sister, Colonel Dr. Kelly Cullen Mack, United States Air Force. Ed's brother played for the 49ers for half a minute. he started a family, so he didn't get to play that long. But Ozzy's oldest daughter ran track with Wilma Rudolph, Jackie. Susan Mack Bell ran track. And her baby sister, I love her to pieces, Kathy Mack Robinson said she ran, but she ran slow. We have a wonderful family. This is a great honor for Eddie. And it was a chance honor because Eddie and I were at a party during the Christmas holiday and we saw John. And I think that was a spark, was it not?
It was the confirmation.
Yeah. And what Eddie said just before he died was, tell her they waited too long. The Mack family is thrilled spitless. Just, we're thrilled. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I also want to introduce one of my young cousins who played basketball at College of San Mateo with Gary Dilly. Fred Garrett. I want to thank you. We're a great group. Oh, and one person I wanted to mention, because this person and I both attended the College of San Mateo together with John Miller. I love Fred Bear. Fred Bear is one of the sweetest track coverers in the world. Fred, I love you. There's a lot to learn about Ed. I think you can go on almost any media and learn about him now. But just know, people, that being 5'2" is not going to stop you. You can do anything you want to do. And there's one other person I have to introduce in this audience. We recently stole a child, and it's illegal to do that. But I would like you to meet General Antoinette Gant, United States Army, Corps of Engineers. General Gant is because we have a colonel in the Air Force. We recently had a big celebration and Kelly asked Eddie to wear an Air Force hat. He said, no, I have to do Army today because he was the first sergeant in the United States Army. That's why his college career was interrupted. But he was a proud American soldier. We are a proud American family, and thanks all.
Folks, Mitch has some final words for us.
First off, thank you, John, for having this beautiful meeting. Thank you to all the inductees. Great jobs. So I'm going to ask the president, or rather the chairman of our board of directors, John LaTorra, to join Carmen Blair, and they're going to walk outside and they're going to get next to where where we're going to unveil the new exhibit about our inductees. And so they're going to file out. And after they're out, I'm going to ask the inductees to stand up and to follow them, and then to stand by the exhibit, and then everybody else can come out and we can take pictures and so forth. So John and Carmen are leaving, so if the inductees could stand up and join them in front of the exhibit.